Good evening and welcome to the March 18, 2024 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite Brian Fields from our Public Works Department to lead us. If everyone could please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brian. Next item on our agenda is reflection, and I will just call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all. Next, we have approval of minutes, and tonight there are two sets of minutes before us. The first is from the joint work session held on February 26th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from the joint work session dated Monday, February 26, 2024.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 4-0. Next, we have the minutes from the regular session held on March 4th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from the regular session held March 4th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is appointments. Tonight we have one reappointment and a few appointments. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the resolution of the council confirming appointments and reappointments to the Economic and Business Development Committees, Educational Enrichment Committee, Environmental Affairs Committee, and Senior Advisory Committee. For a 3-year term to the Economic and Business Development Committee, Shanika Whitehurst. To the Environmental Affairs Committee, a 2-year term for Risharaj Mathur and John Willis. To the Senior Advisory Committee, a 2-year term for Diane Schmid, and a reappointment to the Education Enrichment Committee, a 2-year term for Jason Wilcox.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0. Is there anybody in the room whose name we just read? Not seeing anybody. We're going to have to thank them when we see them. But joining and being part of City Committee is a great way to help the city, to contribute meaningfully to the business of the city, and get to know people, like-minded people, and how things work. I can't recommend it enough. It's really good stuff. So hope you will consider joining a committee as well. Okay, next on our agenda is public comments. This is the time the mayor and council would like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on any topic, because we don't have a public hearing, any topic you'd like. We ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Keep your comments no more than 3 minutes. Do we have anybody who'd like to testify this evening? Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jeanette Rosenbaum, the Chair of the Environmental Affairs Committee. These comments are not on behalf of the committee, they are just my own. That said, I am sure the committee would join me in celebrating the appointment of 2 new members. We are excited to welcome John and Rishi Raj. We have not had a new member in 1.5 years because for most of that time we did not have any open seats. It will be great to have new ideas and new energy. I am less enthusiastic about the proposal for the development of the Stevenson Metro Grove property. I was shocked to read that, quote, "The approved forest conservation plan shows the entire area being developed with no trees retained on site." If a forest conservation plan that conserves no trees is an approvable forest conservation plan, we need to rethink the concept of a forest conservation plan. I did note that while arguing that there is no space to conserve trees on site, the developer nonetheless found space for large areas of open lawn and almost 200 parking spaces beyond what is required by the zoning code. It seems to me there is plenty of space for trees. if we simply make some different choices about how to prioritize the use of the space. Instead of even more deforestation to squeeze in even more housing on the east side, I would love to see a more creative proposal that preserves the quality of life for current residents while welcoming new members of our community. As I just said, new arrivals bring ideas and energy to our diverse and thriving city. Let's find a way to make space for them without destroying what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I will note, Jeanette, I'm happy to let you give this testimony, but the record on that application has been closed, and so we are not legally allowed to consider anything that's outside of the record on that.
I know, the record tends to close and then a bunch of more documentation comes out.
Okay, well, we can discuss that offline, but thank you. Thanks for the testimony. Do we have anybody else in the room who'd like to testify? Okay, let me just check on Zoom. Okay, if there's anybody on Zoom who'd like to testify, just use the raise hand feature, and I will call on you. See a couple people in the room. Okay, not seeing any takers. We will go on to the next item on our agenda, which is from the mayor and city council, and we're going to start with Lisa Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Saturday, attended the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which was great as usual, but even beyond the short but fantastic trolley ride, the weather was incredible. So I was happy to do that. I couldn't stay long because, it's been a pretty emotional week for me personally. Not only is my mother moving, and we moved her on Saturday from the home that we all grew up in, that she's been in for 52 years. We did that big move on Saturday, so she's safely in a new place, and we're still trying to get our heads wrapped around what we're going to do with the family home. But also, Mr. Howell has left the Commanders, so I don't know how I'm going to get over that one. So pretty emotional, but I think I'll survive both. So that's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While you had very emotional news of a football player leaving your team, I'm very excited to have Saquon Barkley on my football team. So, and I know Councilmember Harris will probably associate himself with those comments as well. Tom, maybe not so much. Oh, you get your 3 minutes. Fair enough. I was very disappointed to miss the St. Patrick's Parade this weekend, but I'm wearing my green tie in support. I was picking up my oldest from college down in Savannah, Georgia, which they were getting ready for their St. Patrick's Parade, which is, if not the second or third largest St. Patrick's Parade in the country. There was already people out in their green, and there were stands already set up. But moving CJ back for spring break before they get to study abroad. So it was a long drive on Saturday. Thankfully, there was beautiful weather for that drive. The biggest thing that I attended the past couple weeks was the grand opening of the Wawa. It was a fantastic turnout. We blew away the expectations of the Wawa team to a person. They all said how impressed and shocked they were that we had such an incredible turnout. Councilmember Hernandez was sharing some text that he had with the general manager, and it sounded like they had 20,000 people on their first day, which is just incredible. Been there a few times. My children are very excited.
You made sandwiches for about 10,000.
Yes, we did. So I got the pleasure of being able to participate in the Hoagies for Heroes competition between the Gaithersburg Police Department and Montgomery County Fire. The fire department had a lot more people. They may have cheated. I'm not quite sure. There was lettuce flying. I may have been partially responsible for some of that, but it was a lot of fun, and it was for a good cause. $1,000 went to fire department charity. And I got a Wawa hat, so I was just ecstatic, really. That was the main reason I participated, was because I saw Corporal Lane had a hat. I'm like, how'd you get that hat? You got to make hoagies. I'm like, I've been training for this my entire life.
Dreams do come true.
Dreams do come true, yes. But it was great, and we've been in there a few times, and they seem to be already feeling a part of the community. So welcome to them, and I'm excited to see what other great things are going to happen on the 355 corridor. I'm pretty sure that's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Except,
Oh, I do have a reading. I even had it open on my screen. After closed executive session, a closed meeting was held in person by the mayor and city council on Monday, March 4th, 2024, at approximately 8:26 p.m. pursuant to a motion adopted unanimously. The session was proposed to be closed pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, sections 3-305B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and 3-305B8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The topics discussed were consulting with counsel to obtain legal advice regarding disputes related to the 16 South Summit Avenue construction project, and consulting with staff regarding potential litigation. Present at this meeting were Mayor Ashman, council members Harris, Henderson, Hernandez, McNulty, and Wu. Staff present were City Manager Briley and Deputy City Manager Johnson. Upon conclusion of the discussion, the closed executive session was adjourned at approximately 9:24 p.m.
thank you,
Now
Jim.
I'm done, Mr.
All right, Jamil.
Excellent. So I too had the privilege of joining Jim for the Wawa opening, and I was commenting to the mayor that I hope they're all that big and that exciting, because that was excellent. 20,000 is a lot of people. And I attended, so it was the first ribbon cutting and first St. Patrick's Day parade, which was excellent. The weather was beautiful and super well attended, so excited to be part of those events. And I have an announcement. Notice to the general public is hereby given that the mayor and city council plan to conduct a council and the communities meeting on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at Lakelands Park Middle School, 1200 Main Street, Gaithersburg, Maryland. The meeting is being held for residents in the vicinity of Darnestown Road, Fields Road, Great Seneca Highway, and Muddy Branch Road, including the apartments at Aventon, Brighton Village, Cadence, Camden, Governor Square, and the villages of Gaithersburg, the condominiums of Brighton West, 125 Crown, Lakelands Ridge, Oaks at Washingtonian Woods, Park Summit, Shady Grove Village, 123, Timberbrook, Vistas at Washingtonian Woods, and the following neighborhoods: Amberfield, Crown Farm, Gateway Park at Washingtonian Center, Greens of Werther, Park Summit, Lakelands Ridge, Mission Hills, Reserve at Crown Point, Shady Grove Village, Werther Homes, Washingtonian Towns, Washingtonian Woods, Washingtonian Village, Woods at Muddy Branch, and Wesley. For more information, or if accessibility accommodations are needed, please contact Neighborhood Services Division Chief Kevin Roman at kevin.roman@gaithersburgmd.gov or 240-805-1042.
Thank you very much. Neil.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had aside from the Wawa, and I did enjoy a hoagie that night and a cheesesteak a few nights later, although I don't recommend eating them in the car. My shirt might never be the same. Aside from that, we had a meeting on Friday. The mayor and I participated in a meeting with the acting superintendent of MCPS, Dr. Felder, along with Dr. Johnson, to discuss ways to see about helping to improve the performance of some of the schools in our city. That was a productive meeting. I think the Gaithersburg Book Festival may have been brought up as well. Shocking news, I'm sure. Also, not necessarily representing the city, but representing some parents of autism children in the schools, which includes my son, but the school that he graduated from, elementary school, is an autism program, and some parents contacted me and were concerned that 7 of the paraeducators are being pulled out of that program So I had a meeting with Dana Wiles, who heads autism for the MCPS, as well as a number of staff people to find out what's going on, and I communicated that back to the parents. So I think they took the meeting because of the title, even though that wasn't really what my role was, and I was glad that they cleared the air, and that was very helpful. So aside from that, I do have an announcement to make as well. Notice to the general public is hereby given that the City of Gaithersburg will hold 2 public meetings to invite comments on the use of Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funding available to the city through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The city is preparing its fiscal year 24 action plan for the period July 2024 through June 2025. At these meetings, staff will introduce the CDBG program, describe how funds must benefit low to moderate income households, and describe proposed activities to benefit these residents and communities. March 28, 2023, from 12 to 1 p.m., and the same day from 6 to 7 p.m., virtually by teleconference online and telephone. The meetings will be held virtually via the Zoom webinar platform. To register to participate and provide public input, please visit the public meetings page on the city's website, www.gaithersburgmd.gov/meetings. A Spanish-speaking interpreter will be available. Pursuant to the provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act, any person requiring reasonable accommodation related to a disability is asked to advise the city at least 48 hours in advance. Contact Human Resources Department at hr@gaithersburgmd.gov or call 301-258-6327. For further information, please contact Brittany Marinello, Housing and Community Development Manager, brittany.marinello@gaithersburgmd.gov or 240-805-1022. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We'll go to Rob.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I am sad that I missed the Wawa opening. I was actually in Annapolis for my day job, but I did learn a few things from my colleagues' Facebook feeds, that apparently Jim has a second career, should he choose to, and apparently Wawa has a mascot that's a goose. Had no idea, but it makes sense now to me. So my mind was absolutely blown. Great parade, as always. You know, it's an efficient parade, and the weather held out very well this year. I don't think I've got anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rob. I will join my colleagues in congratulating staff for a terrific job on St. Patrick's Day Parade. They ordered up great weather. And everything from our standpoint, I'm sure there was, behind the scenes, there was some drama, but like from our standpoint, it all looked like it ran perfectly smoothly. So hopefully that's actually true. In addition to our new Wawa, I had the opportunity to cut the ribbon on the new IKEA in Rio. And so within the span of a week, there's 2 beloved national brands that have invested in opening locations in Gaithersburg. It's very nice, very nice. As I posted on social media, Gaithersburg is open for business. As Neil said, we had the meeting with the superintendent, and I did bring up the book festival that's coming up on May 18th, and I want to bring it up for you guys as well. It is going to be spectacular, as always. We have our little slide up there. I'm so happy staff does that. If you'd like to take a look at, I think we probably have 100 some odd authors that are listed on the website already. And there'll be a few more added as we add moderators and build out the programs. But there's a lot there for you to see already at GaithersburgBookFestival.org. Please save the date for May 18th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It is free to attend and free to park. Some of the best authors, storytellers, programming in the world is coming to our doorstep, and we all should. I hope you all will take advantage and invite your friends and neighbors and family and anybody else you happen to come across. Thank you, staff, for posting that. And then I will note that next week we'll have a work session on Monday, March 25th, to receive an update on the COG, Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, Transportation Land Use Connections, FY24 grant for Safe Routes to School Priority Improvement Study. A mouthful. This is a mouthful, but it's an interesting program. So that we'll be having a work session on it, and we're going to discuss the city's parking permit program. So I buried the lead here, obviously. That should be a meaty meeting. The next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, April 1st. And next we have from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Ashman. I'll just share a couple of updates. As you know, our Parks, Rec, and Culture Department does amazing programs for all ages, abilities, for our residents and non-residents, if they so choose to participate. I wanted to highlight 2 unique programs that are coming up. One may be of interest to Councilmember Wu, which is the Museum on Tap program, which begins on April 8th at St. Row. So you can.
At Saints Row?
Not
Row?
Saint, I thought I said St. Rose. It's
Saint,
like, wow.
Saints Row. Sorry.
Saints Row.
Saints Row.
Yeah.
They'd probably
so
be on board.
that is a council meeting night, so you can't actually go to that meeting, that program, but
Nothing says we can't hold meetings off-site.
it's the budget workshop, so I kind of need you here.
Might help.
So the April 8th is the kickoff to that program, but I think it's a really exciting twist to get more folks engaged in our museum program offerings and partnering with the local Old Town business. And the other program I wanted to mention, sort of piggybacking off of some of Councilmember Neil Harris's comments tonight, we've done a lot, I think, for youth who need support in our Parks, Rec, and Culture programs, particularly our neurodivergent youth. But we will be offering programs for neurodivergent adults as well starting this summer. And so wanted to plug that and encourage everyone to watch for the summer offerings, take a look at our website to engage some of our neurodivergent adults in some good programming over the summer. So that's all I want to share. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Next, we have our economic development update, Tom Lonergan-Seeger.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go off script very quickly, Councilmember Wu. Years ago, when we were starting the site selection process with Wawa, one of the first meetings they brought us the book of Wawa. I have a copy, and it talks about the goose.
The goose.
Okay, I'll lend you a copy. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for pointing out all these grand openings. I did want to mention one that has not gotten the attention, didn't formally have a ribbon cutting, but the Container Store also opened at Crown on Saturday, March 2nd.
I did not realize, but that's another
My wife
great-
is thrilled.
That's another great brand. Really? Okay.
And a little bit more to come here if you'll engage me. It certainly was St. Pat's Day Parade and IKEA's grand opening, thank you for attending, Mr. Mayor, that brought the spotlight to Rio in recent days. But after talking to Heather Madison and our friends at the Peterson Companies, which owns and manages Rio, I wanted to quickly highlight a couple more great things that are going on around the lake. While many of us miss Corner Bakery, I think somebody was asking about that, they did close last month. Their former space will soon be occupied by Tous les Jus, a French Asian-style bakery founded 20 years ago, has 90 locations stateside and 1,700 worldwide. Permit applications for interior demo and fit-up have been received, but permits have not yet been issued and no opening date has yet been set for them. Copper Canyon does hope to have their barges completed by summertime, and Peterson wanted me to express to all of you their appreciation and to our planner friends and the city staff for the legwork and approvals that went into making the speedy timeline happen for them. Also wanted to report that Sport Rock, which several of us attended, their grand opening just a few months ago, have already hosted their first major competitions. Last week they had the U.S. National Team Trials, which featured a few Olympic hopefuls. And earlier this month they hosted the USA Paraclimbing National Championship. This was big for them, and they wanted to point that out, establishing credibility as a facility that can pull off events of this caliber. Further promising, as it also means they will be considered for finals in the future when it comes to final Olympic trials. In their words, not mine, it's great for future tourism and attraction to Rio and Gaithersburg. And I agreed.
I'm remiss because Jamil and I attended some of they had a whole week worth of U.S. team trials, and we attended one of the Wednesday night one, which was the rope climb. and it was spectacular. And next time, they may get some sort of World Cup championship or qualifier in the fall, and they said they're going to let us know, and I'm going to drag every one of you to this thing. This is an incredible thing to see.
Sure.
So for those who don't know, on the third floor, which people rarely visit at Rio, where the sport and health used to be, they've totally refitted it to this indoor climbing center. And the night before Jamil and I went there, they did speed climbing, which was on one of the walls, and these guys get up the path in like 5 seconds. It's crazy. Like, they're getting up 50, 60 feet in 5 seconds. The one we watched, the rope climbing, isn't for speed, but it's like a 60-foot wall, and it's designed by professionals who are part of U.S. climbing, or USA climbing. Forgive me, I don't know this whole world here, but it's not just a straight flat wall. It's like there's parts that jut out, like the vision I have in mind is like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible when he's climbing on that cliff. It looks like that.
They were holding on with 2 fingers.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
It's incredible to see. I can't recommend it enough.
I think I heard a challenge in there somewhere, so challenge accepted, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It was really great. Okay, so next, let's see where we are here. Ordinances, Janice Hartman. Janice, I did not even see you in the room. You are here. You were hiding from me. This is the introduction of our budget.
Yes, so good evening, Mayor and Council. Turn this down. I'm here tonight for the introduction of an ordinance adopting the city budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, and levying an ad valorem tax on all assessable property within the city of Gaithersburg, Maryland. Each year, the city adopts its annual budget and financial plan, and the attached ordinance is a draft of the proposed ordinance that is used to adopt the city's budget and its tax rates. The city takes the following steps before final adoption of the budget and tax rate. Staff introduces the budget ordinance and requests the mayor and city council announce the public hearing dates, which is tonight. Staff prepares a public advertisement of the budget, which is scheduled to be posted in the Washington Post on March 21st, 2024, this coming Thursday. Staff prepares the online budget book, which will be provided to the mayor and city council by March 29th, 2024. A public hearing is held for any public comment on the proposed budget, which is scheduled for April 1st, 2024. We do not anticipate any changes this year between the introduction of this ordinance and the proposed budget workbook, which will be presented at the public hearing. The Department of Assessments and Taxation is charged with administering the constant yield tax rate law and setting of the real personal property tax rates. When a taxing authority, such as the city of Gaithersburg, plans to impose a real property tax rate that is higher than the current year's real property tax rate, it must advertise the tax rate increase and hold a public hearing. This is a change from prior years. So per state legislation passed in 2023, the constant yield tax rate is no longer a part of this determination.
Yay.
Yes, it was very confusing. So since the city's FY25 budget proposes a real property tax rate of 0.262, the same rate as the current year, the statute does not require notice or public hearing. The mayor and city council will hold a budget work session, which is scheduled for April 8th, 2024, and if necessary, an additional work session on April 9th. The record for public comment is scheduled to remain open until April 17th, 2024, and it is anticipated that the budget will be brought forth to mayor and city council for consideration and final adoption on May 6th, 2024. And I have a little bit more I want to go. So as mentioned last year at this time, the staff began implementing a new budget software, OpenGov, for the preparation of the FY25 proposed budget. So it's been in the works for quite a while. And the transition went smoothly thanks to all the hard work from Brian Helms, Perfect Takarnu in IT, Kyle Jeffson, and Terry Reese in finance. With their combined efforts, we were able to ensure data was transitioned over to the new system, validated, and ensured that staff throughout the city were trained on the new software. With OpenGov, we have a new opportunity to have a more interactive, transparent, and user-friendly online budget book. The primary way to view the budget book will be in the new online version. However, we'll still have a hard copy available for the public to review at City Hall. We are very excited for this change and will provide an overview of the budget book at the public hearing. So I'd like to thank the city's OpenGov project team and all of the staff that participated in the preparation of the budget. and their dedication and for embracing the software and the new processes this year. So at this time, I'll ask that you announce that the public hearing is scheduled to be held on Monday, April 1st, 2024.
Thank you very much, Janice. So a couple of quick questions. So we're not going to see the full budget until the 29th?
Yes.
Okay. Does the new software allow any of the tables to be downloaded or anything like that, or is it just like read?
Yes, you can download it. Mhm.
Okay, cool. That's great. Really exciting.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments, or would someone like to move to introduce?
So I guess I've got I like to say that most people love the holidays. It's their favorite time of the year. My favorite time of year is budget season.
Yes.
And two, since Councilmember Hernandez doesn't get to rock the boat for another 2 months, I just wanted to pull the thread on what a practice that we used to have, which is the strategic retreat.
Hold on a
Sorry.
sec. We just had a little Marvin Gaye out there.
You can't make this up. This is amazing.
I love that song. I do love that
That you
song.
were able to identify the song like
Yeah,
that.
it's one of my favorites.
Trouble Man, right?
No, that makes me want to holler.
Oh, okay, I couldn't quite hear.
So, Councilmember Hernandez was kind of asking me as the second most senior member of this council about opportunities that we've had in the past on how to kind of be engage on the budget earlier. And I mentioned to him that we used to do the strategic planning retreat, which in my estimation was one of my favorite things. So if you had the holiday season, that would be my Christmas. Because it really allowed us to learn a lot about the budget early on, to have engaging input before the budget's actually drafted. And so I mentioned that to him as a possible thing that we might want to reinvigorate in the future. That's it.
Anisha, we just did a strategic plan. What are your thoughts there?
Thank you, Mayor Ashman. A couple things. One, before we did away with the strategic plan retreat, which I think years and years ago used to be off-site, but right before the pandemic was just held at a regular Monday night, my understanding was those meetings were a very deep dive into detailed level of the strategic direction plan, our former strategic plan. Not necessarily a budget meeting per se, but a strategic plan. As we refreshed our strategic plan, and I did get feedback from the mayor and council on the effectiveness of that. I think you may have been the only one who enjoyed that particular activity. So as we refreshed the strategic plan, which happened between September of 2021 and adopted in May of 2022 in time for the FY23 budget, what we decided to do, because that's a 5-year plan, instead of drilling down into every single action item that all the departments are working on, we would instead highlight at the beginning of the year strategic priorities. So for last year, that would have been our first go-round with that approach, and that would have been the housing element. So it was a lot of focus on affordable housing policy for the council, and that coincided with the Fair Housing Plan at the same time. This year it was Retool Gaithersburg. So these are major initiatives that are baked into our strategic plan. And so we spend time in the beginning of the calendar year sort of highlighting a major strategic priority. I'm happy to do whatever the mayor and council wishes to do, but that was the plan for this 5-year until we start the refresh process again.
Rob, go ahead.
Move introduction.
Oh, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Jim, did you want to say?
No,
Okay.
just-
All right, cool.
Mayor, I'm sorry, one more thing, if
Yeah,
I may.
go ahead, please.
We have a new staff member with us.
We do.
So our new budget manager, Kyle Jeffson, is here.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Kyle. He's a Gaithersburg resident,
Yeah.
yes. He's a diehard Gaithersburg fan, too.
Excellent. Excellent. Welcome.
So we're
Kyle.
happy to have Kyle, and as Janice said, Kyle joined in the middle of this transition to the budget software, and You'll hear me say this again at the public hearing. Kudos to the finance team led by the incomparable Janice Hartman, who not only implemented this project, but did so through a transition with several staff member vacancies, unfortunately, and kept us on time for this new exciting online budget book and transparency software. So we're excited for that, and thank you for your efforts, Janice. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next we are at policy discussion, and I'm going to invite Jasmine Forbes to lead us.
Good evening. So this is a policy discussion. So this is a policy discussion for schematic development plan application SDP-9558-123, abandonment application AB-9653-2023, road code waiver RC-9560-2023, and tree removal variance. As shown on the screen, the subject properties are adjacent to the Parklands community and future Watkins Mill urban core, and the properties are zoned MXD. The applicant filed an SDP application requesting approval for the construction of a single-family residential community. The abandonment application was filed with the SDP application to abandon 7,092 square feet of Exchange Avenue right-of-way. The road code waiver application requested a reduction of Street B from the required 62 feet to 52 feet. And the tree removal variance request was for the removal of 29 specimen trees. A consolidated public hearing was held on January 16th. And during that hearing, there were comments raised about the use and design of amenity spaces, emergency safety access in and out of the residential development, potential impacts to the specimen trees in the adjacent city property, and residential units proximity to railroad tracks. The Planning Commission's record closed on February 15th and made a recommendation on February 21st. At their meeting, the Commission recommended approval of the SDP application, abandonment application, road code waiver, and the tree removal variance. The Council's record closed on February 28th, and staff received public comments on this application, which are exhibits 105, 106, 175, and 175, 176 in the record. There are currently 178 exhibits in the record. The applicant submitted a response letter to questions raised during the public hearing, which is exhibit 142. So during the hearing, so you can see on the screen, during the hearing, the applicant proposed 233 single-family units. It was noted in the staff's preliminary report that the applicant was providing MPDUs that were 8 to 10 feet shorter in length and would need approval from the city manager. After further discussions, the applicant withdrew their request and revised the plans to provide MPDUs that are the same length as the market rate townhouses, which is this slide right here. Due to these changes, it resulted in the elimination of one unit on this corner. So the revised plans now show 232 single-family units. The Affordable Housing Plan was reviewed and approved by the Housing and Community Development Manager, and it was approved for MPDUs in the 2/2s and the 20-foot townhouse and 24 sticks. No MPDUs will be located on the front loaded townhouses. Both townhouses and condos will have up to 4 bedrooms. Floor plans are not submitted at this application stage, but the final floor layout and bedroom sizes will be part of the final offer agreement with the housing community staff. Other aspects of the plan, such as street and locations of amenity spaces, have remained unchanged. So during the hearing, the applicant received comments about the potential usability and design of the proposed amenity spaces. In response, the applicant provided an exhibit, which is shown on the screen, which identified the location and size of these areas. As shown in the exhibit, there are 4 areas that will provide outdoor activities. Amenity space number 2, which is right across from Parkview Avenue, will serve as a kind of a gateway open space development and will contain a water feature and seating. Amenity space 1 and 3 are open spaces that will contain seating and landscaping. Due to the removal of the unit, as previously mentioned, amenity space number 3 size increase. Amenity space is the, amenity space number 4, which is here, to the south of the property, is the largest amenity space that will serve as the community park, which will contain a clubhouse, swimming pool, top lot, and open space. And the intent of this space is to be the primary recreational facility for the community. So there was a question about emergency vehicle access from the new development. The city marshal conducted a site visit and reviewed the proposed plans. He found that the development meets the fire code regulations and found that there are 2 ways to exit the development from Exchange Avenue and Blue Fax Place. It was also noted that if the road through the urban core is not constructed, the development still meets the fire code requirements. There was a question about potential impacts to the specimen trees on the adjacent city property. The applicant noted that tree information was collected as part of the natural resources inventory. The plan does not show any trees in the area of concern. So on the proposed development side, the grades are higher, and the plan includes retaining walls and sound fences that will further protect homes from any potential damages from trees. There was a question about other residential properties are located adjacent to the railroad tracks. So staff did an analysis and found 5 single-family residential developments that are adjacent to the railroad tracks. So we have the Devlin property, which is part of the Parklands at Watkinsville Town Center, Long Draft Oaks community, Bennington, and then further down we get into the Means addition and the Deer Park community. So staff have reviewed the applicant's response letter and is of the opinion that they have adequately addressed the comments raised during the hearing. Staff is supportive of the proposed SDE plans, the abandonment application, road code waiver requests, and the tree removal variance. Staff is of the opinion that the development will contribute to the city's overall housing stock and provide support to the future Watkins Mill Town Center urban core development. The proposed buildings will include materials that are compatible and harmonious with the adjacent Parklands neighborhood, and the plans are in conformance with the approved sketch plan. While supportive of the proposed application, staff still has an outstanding comment about the proposed design of Parkview Avenue. As noted in the preliminary analysis, staff recommended Parkview to be designed as a 2-lane street along the Stevenson Metro frontage and the short segment between Urban Avenue and Exchange Avenue, as opposed to the 4-lane section as shown on the SDE plans. So on the screen here, on the left is what the applicant proposed, and on the right is what the staff is proposing. In the record, as Exhibit 140, Public Works Engineering Services Division Chief Brian Fields provided a detailed memo for the recommendation for Parkview to be a 2-lane road. The proposed 2-lane configuration of Parkview Avenue provides numerous benefits, such as shorter pedestrian crossing distances, reduced potential for cut-through traffic in the residential community, increased on-street parking, and elimination of confusing transitional segments between 4-lane and 2-lane sections, lower construction and maintenance costs, and reduced impervious area. In the record is a letter from the urban core owner, Pete Henry, requesting to maintain those 4 lanes on Parkview Avenue. Mr. Henry is of the opinion that the reduction of 4 lanes to 2 will jeopardize the future tenants and development in the urban core. Staff recommended conditions 2 and 3 for that Parkview Avenue to be designed and constructed within the Stevenson Metro development as a 2-lane street as opposed to the 4-lane section shown in the SDP. The commission during their February 21st discussion concurred with staff's recommendation conditions. So that concludes my presentation this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have this evening.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. I expect that there's going to be a couple of questions before we get to policy discussion. I'm looking at you, Councilmember Wu.
Oh.
Do you have any questions?
I have plenty of questions, but aren't they part of policy discussion?
Well, okay.
Yeah,
We're in policy
okay.
discussion. So,
since you had that last point up, it wasn't clear to me, and maybe I'm just dense, as to if the 4-lane road goes down to 2-lane roads, will the right-of-way be preserved such that a later decision could be made to make it a 4-lane road within the existing footprint? Or is there like an abandonment or something like that that would impact the future ability to change capacity if needed?
So on the preliminary subdivision plan, along the front of these homes, They have a parcel that's maintained and owned by the HOA. So staff thought you really don't need that parcel because it just contains a sidewalk. We could just dedicate that to the right-of-way and make Parkview Avenue smaller.
But
Does
would
that
you-
answer your question?
So would,
The answer is no.
I think he's asking, can it eventually
No, you would need
expand
to put down more paving in order
in the
to
future?
Yeah.
make it 4 lanes.
well, yes, understood. So you'd have to put down more pavement, but would the ability to do that be retained and not, for example, are the houses encroaching further over such that you could not do it later? Or where are we taking the,
So I have Brian Hills here.
okay, sorry.
I think I understand the question is, if we build 2 lanes now, and how could it be expanded to 4 lanes? It would need additional right-of-way, and that right-of-way would be on the urban core side.
Core side, okay.
You could substantially maintain the paving that would be put in place for the 2-lane road and the parking. It would need to be modified, but it would not affect the residential frontage and the sidewalk. But just once you get into the asphalt pavement is where you'd have to make some changes. A couple of different ways that could be done, but you would need additional right-of-way on the opposite side of the street.
Okay.
Is there an issue with who would be responsible for that between doing it now and doing it later?
So we're very close in this with the applicant. They've agreed that we could build 2 lanes now and then 4 lanes later, and that they would pay for that. The only sticking point is that the owner wants to have the right to do that without our approval of any kind. And we're saying, no, you need to demonstrate that there's a need for 4 lanes. That's really our main point here, is that the current data shows there's no need for it. We're saying demonstrate there's a need, then at their expense, they could expand it to 4 lanes.
Owner, current applicant, or owner of the urban core?
Owner, Mr. Henry.
Okay, so of the urban core.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to start with the policy discussion?
Nobody has any other questions?
I'm not seeing any, so go ahead.
Okay, let's get down to this. Comment number 1, thank you for addressing all of the questions that were asked. And so specifically, with respect to the trees that I was concerned with that are in our park, I wasn't even thinking about sloping at the time, but it makes sense. It wasn't quite clear to me whether or not there were specimen trees there that and that were identified, and then the rationale was then that they would fall away because of the sloping, or there were no specimen trees identified in that area.
So they didn't identify any special trees
Okay.
in there at our end.
Okay, so ghost trees may fall. So I appreciate that. I do still have concern about the noise impacts, particularly as the trains that are approaching Metropolitan Grove Station. I understand there's a berm and a sound wall that's going to be put in place for those traveling essentially northbound as the trains are being signaled into the station. But there's not going to be noise mitigation coming southbound. So I think that differentiates for some of the other properties that are identified, except perhaps Hutton Street, because when they're having trains coming in northbound in that area, and I know the resident who lives there, the train blows its horn right there. But they do have a noise mitigation berm there. So I do have concern that essentially the train at its loudest is not going to be mitigated across the field until the urban core comes in. I am, while concerned, buoyed by the fact that particularly in the Devlin properties, that successful noise mitigation techniques have been shown that don't require point of sound mitigation, but instead have mitigation from the at the point of residence. And so I'll be trusting that the applicant will be utilizing commensurate noise mitigation, sound mitigation techniques in the construction, particularly of those residences that are facing that unmitigated potential of receiving unmitigated height of noise from the trains as they're blowing their horns coming into the station. I respect the fire marshal's opinion with respect to emergency access to the property. I do have concern with respect to having a single point of failure as well as utilizing Blue Flax, which is not a city street and it's not a very big private HOA street, as a emergency conduit and is used as an essential part of an emergency access plan to the community. But I'll defer to staff on, they have the expertise, they've looked at it, they've gone out to the site. Cross my fingers it works. As I'm sure in the fire marshal's expert opinion, it will. Green space. I just lost the picture. I appreciate the further definition here. It shows a lot better in what I think I'm reading here, which is that center median is mostly grass. There looks to be some either mulching or stormwater management. I couldn't really tell from the enhanced pictures.
It's going to be a stormwater management, this rectangle right
That's
there.
that big rectangle, but the rest of it is usable. Kick your ball, have you chase your dog, things, usable green space. So I do appreciate that. It does alleviate some of my concern with respect to the accessibility of community amenity green space or utilizable green space. I do have an ask, and it's going to be a substantial ask and a substantial discussion point. So I don't know if others want to talk about other stuff before I go into my soapboxy diatribe.
You might want to tee it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tee it up.
So in analyzing the record, particularly with respect to the tree waiver variance, it looks like there's substantial old growth trees on the site. And there are particularly, there's a large mix of tulip trees, which are fast growth. There are also some red oaks and white oaks. And white oaks are the ones that are particularly of emphasis to me because they are a slow growth tree. And so they are also the tree that is in our logo. So that little tree in the middle of the Gaithersburg tree is a white oak. It's the forest oak that used to be down the road for us and unfortunately fell. There are actually trees on site that, at least by DBU, look to be of similar diameter to those trees. And not being an expert, but looking at online at resources, it looks like at least 5 of the trees probably are colonial era trees. So 200 years or older trees. And specifically, the ones that I'm looking at are, I'll call out the numbers just to have them in the record and to foster some discussion on the point. Tree 548. There's also a question that I had on 547 because it says it's in excellent condition, but the comment says it's dead. So I'm not quite sure about the discrepancy between, unless it's like Weekend at Bernie's. He was in excellent condition, but he was also dead, as to what that is. But 548, 555, 559, 565, 573. And so, the largest one has a DBH of 47, which would place it approximately 250 years old, which would quite possibly make that the oldest tree in Gaithersburg. But unfortunately, we don't have a tree inventory, so I wasn't able to get a definitive answer on that. I would like to propose a condition going forward. And so here's my ask, is that those trees and others that are like it, if feasible, I would like to request that the developer, as it finalizes its site plan, to preserve one or more of those trees. And I know 2 of those trees are, and this may take a little bit, I'm not looking to fundamentally alter the project, which I think is very beneficial to the city. What I do see is that some of those trees are in locations that could open up that centrally focused green space that I would I have been asking for as well. Some are on the edges of the property. If you're trying to, you'd have to protect the critical root infrastructure, so it may take some additional redesigning, but I think some of it is worth it. And I will throw out the comment. Amenity space number 2, I don't quite get it. I don't get the location of it. And the reason I say that is because the green space amenity, I think, is best serving the community that upon which it's being developed. That almost looks to me like it's going to be a transitional amenity for the urban core if and when it ever comes in. And I can see folks walking across the street from the big biotech firms that hopefully are coming in there to have lunch in that green and amenity space, whereas I would actually rather have townhouses there, closing off that space, and then requiring the urban core developer to program amenitized green space for its own folks, rather than having what I could envision folks coming across to that attractive nuisance. It's something that Councilmember Hernandez learned from a prior session. Drawing folks into the community. I would actually rather have housing there and then freeing up perhaps the removal of housing so that you have an equal count. But perhaps in looking at the tree count inside of the development itself, where there are some trees that would as planned be close to housing, and in order to preserve critical root space, you'd probably have to remove housing. So I would rather do that trade-off, open up the green space within the community itself, preserve these ancient trees that at least I think are of value to the city of Gaithersburg. But the specific language that I want to introduce is as a condition that if feasible, and so I'm not making it a requirement, but I do ask for diligence to be put into whether or not something of this caliber could in fact be done. If feasible, the developer preserve and integrate those specimen trees into the design of the community. And there's actually something that in talking to Councilmember Hernandez, Councilmember Henderson, that I wasn't actually realizing. I consider myself a tree hugger, and so I just wanted to go out and hug those trees. But those trees were actually present during the historical years of an important community that is lost to Gaithersburg. It's a historically black community that if we were to preserve one or more of those trees, and I know there's a condition that the Planning Commission has recommended that there be a historical marker, what better historical marker would there be than preserving a tree that was actually present when that community was there? So that's the condition I would propose. I can refine the wording if we need to, but again, it's if feasible. It's not a requirement. I've identified 5 trees. I would be happy with one being preserved, and specifically if we can find one that would really pay homage to the community of yesteryear that was there. So that was my soapbox.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
All right. So to sum up, it's a condition that to preserve as many. I don't like the at least one. I would say to preserve as many as is feasible of these specific specimen trees, right?
Of like caliber. So the white oaks are the ones that are the most, because you could have a similar DBH for a tulip tree that's 100 years old, which is still a great tree, but it's the white oaks, and I would like to have,
Well, we're going to let you just determine or work with staff to determine what the specific trees are. But basically, there's specimen trees, and if feasible, you'd like to preserve as many of them as possible.
Correct.
Right?
And I don't like that park that's close to the urban core.
Well, but do we want to complicate this? Do you want to have a second condition you're proposing?
No. I respect that in order to make projects work, the math has to work. And so I was offering that as a trade-off, if their trade-off needs to be made to preserve the feasibility of the project. Does that make sense?
No.
Oh.
No.
I was told by staff that there are certain pencil-in amounts of housing that needs to go here in order to make the project viable. That
I'm
was
sure
my
that's true.
understanding of it. And so if that is a consideration, I would rather have housing in that little amenity space next to the urban core and open up, to allow the removal of housing inside the project to open up green space and hopefully preserve one of the trees or two of the trees.
So that would require a redesign of the project.
I mean, it would be plopping two little rectangles right there.
Can I just suggest that, like, from a simplicity, from the standpoint of actually achieving one of the things that you've put out here, that asking the applicant to redesign the project would add tremendous complication, and I think the chance, I don't know how the council members are going to...
I'm okay with that park being there. I'm just, if a trade-off needs to be made, that's where I would see the trade-off.
Okay, but for now...
Correct.
All
I
right.
wouldn't put a condition on it.
Okay, Jasmine, what is a staff position on a condition like that? I don't think it's an unreasonable condition. If it's feasible, preserve the specimen trees. Is there a staff position on a condition like that?
It all kind of depends on how much it's going to change the design of the community as part of the STP, the preliminary subdivision plan, and house layouts are approved as is SDP. So if they...
But is it possible that there's a way to do it keeping the same design, but just maybe during the construction process, sort of avoiding certain roots and trees? Is there a way to do it that way?
We would have to look at it, because I don't know, the trees that we have to look kind of where they're located. There might be like proposed stormwater that might be proposed.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of them are inside of structures as planned. 2 of them are on, one is in a sidewalk, the other one is pretty darn close to a house. And so there would have to be some kind of shifting, as the Planning Commission just did when they shifted the housing for amenity space 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, it's on the table. We're going to go to Neil. We'll go to the council and see where we are on this.
I'm just curious, there's some correspondence in the packet from Chase Builders about some extra parcels. Is that under consideration at this point?
That's up to the applicant. That would be a whole separate application.
We should
later on.
stay out of that.
All right, that's fine. I was just curious where that was going. I hadn't seen that until I saw the packet. The letter's addressed to council, but I don't think it ever crossed my desk.
It was emailed to us, I think.
Well, it's policy discussion. You want to, or
No, I think that Rob covered more ground than I was going to cover, so I'm good.
okay, Lisa.
Thank you. To respond to Councilmember Wu's comment about the trees and preserving in reverence to the historically black community, to close out the conversation he and I had, it is, I wouldn't associate a tree, particularly an oak, with a historically black community. That was an enslaved community, and those trees historically, I don't know if those trees exactly were used for lynchings. And I would not tie a tree to associate with a historically black community, particularly an enslaved community. So I just want to close out my thoughts on that conversation. Are we just talking about that, or
Talk about how the project, like what's before us.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that nuance of our conversation. Yeah.
Also, Jasmine, you and I had a conversation, and thank you for your responses concerning the affordable housing plan, which is fantastic. So I just, for the record, want to, because there was I had some concern in terms of generally, what's the word I'm looking for? Dispersed. There's the word I'm looking for. And particularly with front-loaded, not allowing MDPUs workforce housing. But the rear loading is both affordable and market rate. So we're not singling out rear loading and affordable. And the 2/2s, although the affordable housing is not on the upper level, the lower levels are both market and affordable. And as a benefit to that, we get 4-bedroom housing, which is incredible. So still to see what the size of that four bedroom housing is. Hopefully those are reasonably, I don't know what they'll look like. Also, the 20-inch is not only MDPUs. Those are also dispersed between market rate and affordable. So the smaller townhouses are not only MDPUs. So I just wanted to, I had asked those questions, and I just want to put that on the record because I think that was important to identify. So thank you, and thank you for your great work on this.
Thanks, Lisa. We'll go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will associate myself with Councilmember Henderson's comments regarding affordable housing. I think the way that those units are dispersed throughout the community achieves the goal that we've been trying to set with the city with new housing and making sure that we're not clustering. And I think that the agreement that we've come to, I think, makes a lot of sense. I share Councilmember Wu's passion for trying to save particularly colonial era trees based on the positioning. I don't know how feasible that is. I could support language that was around feasibility. I did want to ask just the way that the findings are written, and I'll turn your attention to packet page 43 with regard to this. It's the enforcement of the prohibition of removing of specimen trees would mean reducing the development, which would deprive the applicant of the rights commonly enjoyed by others who are in similar areas that have many of the same features as the subject site. In using that language, could that not be applied to any development anytime there's a specimen tree? I'm just wondering how that applies specifically here and in this case versus falling back on particular language when we just have a specimen tree that's in the way and we want it to go.
So repeat your question again. Sorry, I was looking.
I'm just curious about the wording of the link, because I know that's something that we have to find in order for us to approve the removal of the tree. I'm just curious about the language of depriving the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others who are in similar areas that may have many of the same features of the subject site. I want to understand how that applies here versus just any other time that there's a specimen tree in the way. Like, how are we finding here that this is an issue? Is it just we can't do it because it's in the way? And if that's it, that's fine. It just seemed a very specific kind of language to satisfy the requirement.
Well, so as part of development, the developer wants a certain amount of units and rows need put in. They just need a project that's going to work. And if there's a tree that's in the middle of the road, then they're going to have to. It's just all about how they design. And
Okay, I guess.
I think it's actually a frank question. It ties to a taking of the property. And so if you, I'm sorry, I can't answer. I can answer it, but it's a frank question.
Right. It does come down to the impact of the specimen tree. If it's not going to have a major impact on the project, then it remaining or not remaining doesn't make a difference. But if not allowing it to be removed does have a major impact on the project, then that kicks into the standard of depriving the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others. So it is a matter of degree and what is the impact of. Here, it's kind of a negative question, the enforcement of the prohibition on removing the trees, but if prohibiting the trees from being removed would have an impact on the project, it just depends on where they are. If there's a minor impact or a very little impact, then it's hard to say that that's depriving anybody of a right that's common to another. But if it has a bigger impact, and I think I would just say based on some of what we've heard, some of the trees are in areas that would be difficult to design the project in a similar manner. And that does come closer to the point here, which is depriving somebody of a commonly owned right.
But I think Jim's question was about the language itself, and the language, he was pointing out that the language seems very specific, and are you saying that the language is specific about taking, and it's sort of legal language that needs to be in there, or were there liberties taken with the language?
No, there wouldn't have been liberties taken with the language. That is one of the elements of the requirement that's there. So if it's just, why is that language there, that's part of what that is part of the standard that has to be looked at. I was more explaining what the standard means.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just coming down to, because, we've had similar questions about trees and needing to be able to determine that, yes, these are interfering with something, and I'm trying to understand is it interfering with the project, because what I'm hearing, it sounds like, versus it's
Inconvenient.
Yeah, it's an inconvenient versus we're depriving somebody of a right, which is the way that it's written.
Right.
I mean, overall, I think that this is a great development. I think that it's sorely needed. It's density near mass transit. We just need our partners at the state to follow through with the funding that they were talking about, and making MARC actually more convenient, more user-friendly, doing what a mass or a density project near mass transit is supposed to do, and get people out of their cars. So I look forward to that being something that happens. I appreciate the fire marshal's clarification on access, and in stating that even without the completion of the urban core, he is still comfortable with it. I do share Councilmember Wu's, really, a fire truck can get there, but I will defer to the fire marshal on that. I don't have the issue with that pocket park there on the west side of the development, only because I can see, as the vision coming down that boulevard, and you see it into a park versus into the front of a property. So that does make sense to me. All in all, I'm in favor of the project. I would support, if the rest of the council is in agreement, language that said if there are ways to spare a specimen tree, if feasible, I would be in support of that. But I don't want to derail the project because we determined that all of them cannot. If the number ends up being 0, I don't think that should still derail the project. But I do think it is absolutely worth doing that additional due diligence to see if there's a way to save one or more.
Thanks, Jim. Jamil.
Just 2 comments. It's great to see the potential for hundreds of families having an opportunity to move into Gaithersburg with a development like this, and to see the flexibility from the applicant and staff and finding, as Councilmember Henderson mentioned, workable solutions for the affordable housing dispersion or distribution, to make sure that they're equitably done there. So I'm happy to see that there, and glad that was put there. I'll join Councilmember McNulty and Councilmember Wu in terms of, if feasible, I'll be supportive of the specimen tree protection. So those are my comments.
Okay. So what it looks like is we have consensus on approval of the SDP. We'll take a formal vote, but maybe somebody could move it with the condition. Rob, I'll just say it. Rob, I'm worried about you making this condition because you're going to complicate this. But go. You want to give it a try?
He's the one who. I was about to write it down. That's what I was going to.
If I could, I think I have the condition for you.
Go ahead.
So
please.
Explore the potential of retaining trees, and I think I got the numbers: 548, 555, 559, 569, 573. If feasible, to be reviewed as part of the final site plan.
It's pretty good.
That sounds great. Okay, would someone like to move, so we're gonna have to do three motions and votes here.
I'm sorry, before you move, will you take a comment from the applicant?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
For the record, Scott Wallace with Miles and Stackbridge on behalf of the applicant. We certainly appreciate the efforts to save significant trees. It is I think recognized, a very difficult site to engineer. And because of grading, for example, will make it difficult to save these trees. I'm also hearing that it's a good faith effort is being asked for, and it's if feasible. Anything can be feasible if you lose enough units. I don't think that's the intention of the mayor and council on this condition, but it would be perhaps helpful if the feasibility could be tied to no net loss of units.
So,
the feasibility, again, anything is feasible if you.
Greg,
yeah, so
you want to come up here and read the draft condition again?
And I will note, I do not know where all these trees are off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I can send you the pictures if you want.
So, what was it again? Applicant to explore the potential of retaining trees 548, 555, 559, 569, 573, if feasible, at the time of final site plan.
Yeah, I mean,
And the applicant's asking without
I understand.
the risk
No
of
net loss of
of-
units.
well, yeah, so no net loss means to me that if you needed to make that trade-off, or if you needed to move something within reason, that's the good faith diligence you'd be pursuing, but yeah, I'm okay with that.
So I would add, at the SDP stages, this is preliminary subdivision, so any changes to the subdivision plan would require that to come back to the mayor, city council.
Okay, Lisa's got a question.
To Rob, is it the trees that you've numbered, is it an or an and? Is it, you want all of those or the feasibility of any?
So if feasible, all trees and more, recognizing the reality of the site, then, each of those if feasible.
Okay. For the motion,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we identify if any.
Okay, so can we Greg, can you help us come up with some language to add to that would both create a no net loss of units and essentially, look, do we want them to redesign this project?
No.
Okay, so
Again,
to save them without redesigning, without a substantial change to this project.
without change to the subdivision plan
Yeah.
or a loss of units, we can add that into the condition if you feel that's necessary. Again, this is not my expertise, but I do know there's a critical root zone related to these trees. During construction, they're typically impacted, but a significant amount of it is impacted. The tree will die ultimately. So again, depending on where these trees are located, even if they do they try to maintain them, the reality is they may not maintain. In that community itself, there used to be a black gum tree. Councilmember Wu made me remember it. It's by the stormwater management pond. It was intended to be retained as well as part of that project. Ultimately, it did die, and they did remove it because of the impact on the critical root zones. So again, it's something just taking into account that we can try to save them, but they may not be saved at the end of the day.
I don't recall that tree.
Well, we don't have to
Sorry.
get off track here. Okay, so so what's our language for our draft condition?
Applicant to explore the potential of retaining trees, we'll read them out again, 548, 555, 559, 569, 573, where feasible as part of the final site plan at no loss,
No net loss.
no net loss,
Of
and
units
maintaining
no-
the existing subdivision.
Right,
Right.
yeah, okay. Would someone like to move the SDP with that condition? Honestly, I think we should have not listed out the specific trees. I think we just should have said whatever specimen trees are there.
Yeah,
But-
that's fine with me too, but those are the most prevalent.
All right, let's amend, a friendly amendment, just specimen trees, whatever specimen trees are there, if they can be saved with the no net loss of units or redesign of the subdivision, whatever you called it.
That works.
Those 5 white oaks are the most significant ones.
Okay,
So moved.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0. Next, we have, not quite done with this one yet, next we have the Road code waiver, RC 9560, 2023. Would someone like to move approval of that?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 5-0. And next, we have the abandonment application 9653, 2023.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you. We got through it, okay.
I didn't actually vote on that because I lost where we are. You were going very quickly.
What would your vote be?
Abandonment.
Which one was it?
Road
965?
code.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the road on Exchange.
it's
Yeah.
on page
The abandonment?
466.
Oh.
Did-
Yeah, that's the road. Okay, yeah, aye.
Okay, all right, so it's 5-0. Okay.
Trying to keep up.
I can't.
So,
Grease
I'm
lightning.
sorry, I just want to make sure we didn't lose track of the staff recommendation for the 2-lane road. Is that,
Was that part of the,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
That was the abandonment one, right?
Are you talking about the SDP?
No.
It was
And
included as a
Yeah.
condition on the approval, so if the STB was approved with that condition, we're good.
Right.
okay, I was making.
That was my point.
Okay, so the condition, that other condition, the planning commission, or the staff condition was on the approval?
Yes.
Who's on first?
Okay.
Mayor, help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another Venable.
I put one in the staff.
Is staff clear on what we just did? Thank you.
So
Okay.
it's 6 conditions with the SD.
Right.
Right,
Okay.
That was there.
yeah, okay, from the city attorney.
I don't have
Thanks,
anything tonight.
Jasmine.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
It's like a whirlwind.
From any other staff, anything from any other staff, okay. Well, thank you all for being with us. Let me just go back. Join us next week for our work session. Let me just pull that back up. On the city's parking permit program and an update from COG on the transportation land use connections, the grant for safe routes to school. And then the next regular meeting will be, of the Mayor and Council will be Monday, April 1st. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.